Okay. So hi, I'm Jerome, and I wanted to share with you some of the ways that I talk about or how I demo APIs whenever I'm in a pre-sales call. You might think that talking about pre-sales talking about APIs in a sales calls goes a little bit too technical and the weed and doesn't belong there. But I found that it shows up quite often where situation where the customer actually has to buy access to these APIs, and they have to be able to know that yes, getting access to those APIs will actually enable them to build an application that solves this problem. And they need to know what kind of skills that they are required to have so that they can built on that application, or do they need to pass this around to another partner or an integrator that will be able to do this work. So showing off APIs and being able to showing it off in a way that's not too scary, so that I don't just show a giant block of code and lose everybody within a few minutes. To be able to do this in a simple way, so that I really want to be able to show such a solution and to be able to demo such a solution. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to be using the Openweather APIs, and I'm going to be able to show you how I would try to sell you on those APIs and show that these APIs are going to enable you to very quickly get weather data, and then you're able to do whatever you want with this weather data inside of a custom application. The tool that I'll be using for this is called Postman. And the reason why I'm using Postman is that the weather APIs are available through a REST API, and Postman is really the leading tool for interacting with REST APIs. Anybody who's dealt with REST API probably has an exposure to Postman, and it was being a great testing tool. It really helps you organize your presentation easily. So that's why I'm using this tool for this environment. So let me just close off Postman and they can focus on the weather data here and this weather data getting from Openweather. And so here what I would typically, why am I showing this page, is I really want to be able to showcase something that's been completed, kind of an application that actually uses the APIs to actually resolve something. And so here, the front page of Openweather does this for me because it has this completed scenario. So here, instead of trying to walk you to what I'll do, I'll just give you the demo that I would do if I was trying to show Openweather. Okay, so here we want to be able to get weather data out, and Openweather has those set of APIs, and in particular here's kind of a very simple application that actually shows you what you were able to do if you had access to those APIs. In this case here, I'm basing myself in a city. So here I'm based in Maylands in Australia, and it picked up my city, and then I'm able, it automatically grabbed all of the information for weather for this in terms of what is the current temperature. If I look out my window, yep, it's definitely cloudy. It definitely rained earlier, so this is the icon. Definitely shows the current situation. And then the other APIs that I do have some forecast APIs that are available in terms of the kind of a daily or an hourly forecast, or both of them are available, and has a lot of the kind of information that I want. Well, how much rain will it give? What's the kind of the wind that's going to be there? Do I need an umbrella, yes or no? That's like the information I would like to show. And of course, very good information about visualizing not just as numbers, but how seeing when is the rain going to hit based on where I am. Yeah, this cloud is really going to be a problem for me. So how would I actually be able to build an API, such an application? The first thing is I need to understand the documentation. So the first thing I want to be able to do is understand the APIs. So I'll go here over to the APIs, and let's look at the different APIs that I have access to. I can get the current weather, I can get the forecast weather, I can do bulk downloading of historical data. So what do I want to know? Well, what's been the coldest day in the past 30 years. I can write down, if I had access to the bulk data, I will be able to get this data out. But what I'm really interested in is just to show how I'm going to get the current data. So I'll just go to the API documentation, and I can see example of those calls for how to do it, where the calls are all pretty similar. Let me just zoom in so that we can show this a little bit better. Where the APIs that I want to do is, yes, I want to get it's going to be making a request against it. The request is going to be based on, I want to make a request against OpenWeather. What do I want to ask? I want to get the weather data, so the current weather data. This is the word here is going to be weather. If I was asking for forecast, the keyword here would be forecast. And then here, what follows after the question mark are the APIs that I think they're the parameters I'm interested in. In this case, is the weather from where. So one of the ways I can retrieve the data is asking by a city, or if I want to be precise and I want to ask about not just the Montreal that's in Canada, but the Montreal that's in France, then I can state the Montreal and the province and the country code, and be able to be exactly precise on where I'm getting the data. The other parameter that's shown here, that's a required parameter, is I need to be able to justify, to give an API key to say, I am the person who can access this data, and here is the proof that through this API key. Looking a little bit down, I can see the various other parameters that I can give. Things like I don't just want to get the data in imperial units, maybe I want to get the data in metrics, or or maybe get it in imperial, or I get in kelvins, in standard units. I have these various choices here. And so let's actually make requests against this and do it in the environment. So what I'll do is just move over to Postman. And Postman is a tool for actually testing these types of requests and for making these requests here. So let's just look at the requests that I'm making, and just to show it how easy it is to make these requests and how easy it is to change these parameters. I've already built the request here, and I have this keyword weather, which tells me about what is the current weather. I want to get the current weather as opposed to getting a forecast or historical values. And here are the parameters that I want to be able to play with is, the city where I want to get the kind of the units that I'm interested in, and the security elements. Let's just first understand the New York values. In here, instead of showing all the data, I just want to make a simpler application here that just pulls this data out. So if you're the application, so if I want to get the data for London in metric, that would be very easy. Metric, hit enter and retrieve the data in metric units, and it shows me that it's cloudy. If I go again for this in Montreal, Canada, and get the data in metric, it's pretty cold in Montreal right now. And I can also try it again. Sometimes people do use Fahrenheit in Canada as well, so I can ask back in Fahrenheit. And I can see here, it is very easy to be able to get this data, and these parameters are fairly intuitive for how to control. So somebody who wants to be able to use weather, they all need to really understand is how to build these types of URLs, and then the output is fairly self-evident for how it's going to be built. So here I've just kind of removed some of the complexity and only showed you some of the fields that are coming out, but it looks like the programmers, what they're going to be looking at is this is the object that they're working on. It's a format in JSON, and it's going to be a bunch of key value pairs. So what is the temperature, and there's a number telling me the temperature. What is the name, and there's a value tells me that the value, that the name of the city that I'm looking at. And so this is all you would really need to be able to do to be able to access weather data inside of your own system. Okay, and that's kind of a very quick demo for showing how I've used these APIs. So let's see now, let's build up a request like this. You can see that it's very, very easy inside of Postman. So what I'll do is just grab this and zoom into Postman. So here I'm in Postman. So we just went to the full screen version of Postman. Since I'm in full screen, actually increase the size of the Postman window just a little bit. The UI is not always easy to zoom in and out of Postman. It's very easy to end up trying to show something that's like this, which is maybe too small, or if I try to increase, things a lot, it can actually end up breaking the UI. So it takes a little bit of a chance to figure out, okay, well, how big should this window be so that I can show everything that I want, but not be too small that the person cannot read it. So it depends a lot on, okay, maybe for doing this work, I need to be in full screen mode and then I'll be able to zoom in more. Maybe I don't want to show all the elements. So here I'm really only showing the request, but sometimes I also need to show the list of all the requests that I'm doing with. So there's a lot of playing for a little bit about how you want to show, well, how much can I hide? So do I want to show the sidebar, yes or no? And how much can I zoom in? What should the window be full screen, or can I just put it on the side? So these are kind of the basic of the Windows layout for Postman. Let's open up and let's make now I want to create a request like this. So I'll just do a request called Openweather, and collection. So collection is just a list of all the requests that I can do. Let's just add a request, and I'll just say current weather. Once you'll be navigating in Postman, you'll have just a long list of all the kind of requests and tests that you're doing. So it's always very good to give it a proper name. So I'll just give it a name. So get current weather for a city, and maybe I can go for city, can increase it a little bit. But if I start having a longer name, it's going to be cut off. So I try to remove to just be concise but unique and descriptive. And here what I want to do is use the URL that's inside. I was given part of the API. And okay, so that's the first key here. Now I want to be able to do this in a way that works. So let's just get a API from Postman. So I'll just go here. Actually, I'll just have to sign in to get my API key. So just show that here as well. Just sign in. And let me get my password. Okay, and then I have access to my API keys. I'll just grab the API keys for Postman. So there is the edit. Just grab it, copy it here, and I can put it directly here in the first pass and put in the city name, say London. And here to actually see the results. Here I'm just gonna hit send. For me, just command enter to hit it. But it's very helpful to start learning some of the shortcuts to move to the application a little bit more quickly. So in this case, what I'm using to make a request, I've used send request. In my case, it's command enter. Makes it quicker to use the application. Okay, and that works. But once I'm in this environment, it gets kind of a little bit fuzzy because I really want to focus on, what do I want to focus on? It's things like the words weather. It's things like this, this parameter, London, and the rest that is here. This part of the APIs, the API keys are kind of distractions, and I'm going to lose people by looking at something too strong. So I want to just remove these things and hide them away in variables. And there's lots of places where you can put variables in Postman. I can create an environment for them so that the environment, say I have two environments where one is kind of the demo environment and in a production environment. I could put the API keys in those environments here. But in this case, really, I'm just going to have, for this application, I'm going to use this API key. And for another application, I might use another API key. But for these types of requests, I'm always going to use the same API key. So I'm going to put the API key inside of a variable for Openweather. So for my collection, so I'll just click there, look at my variable and add it here. And I'm gonna have something called an API key and put the value in the current value. So first, the variable name. I have lots of flexibility in Postman to do this. So for example, I can have a space. I'm not restricted by having everything set up together. And now I have two places where I can put the key. I can put either the initial value or the current value. Current value, what's very important is that this won't get synced over. So things like authentication information, it's very important not to have that synced over. So I'll put it over here, because if I want to share this collection with somebody else, I don't want to end up sharing too much of this, too much of these, because this might end up costing me money if I share this. Of course, if I'm sharing this number over the internet, I'll just delete this key afterwards so that I'm not sharing it here either. So here, this one is going to be, I'll go back here and hide this away. So I'll just do my double brackets, accessing the different values. Here, I'm seeing it's not auto-completing. The reason why is because I didn't save this. Here, the orange circle is highlighting that I'm not saving this information. So here, I'll go again, and then I can see my variable API. Sorry, let me just fix that. I'll go to API key, save that. Go back here, and I want to say API key. And what I'm doing here is I'm mimicking the exact thing that's part of the documentation. If I go back to the documentation for the APIs, API current weather, what they have is API key. So I want to mimic that as closely as possible, so it's easy to make the link between what's part of my documentation, the example that I'm doing, and the example that I'm doing in the documentation. So that's very straightforward, readable. And the next thing is the next thing I want to hide is all of this information here. It's always kind of this boilerplate URL, this kind of resource that I always want to get. So I'll just instead what I'll do is just put it under a variable called resource. And this can be shared across the link. This can be shared. So I'm going to put in the initial value, and then the current value is not going to change. But maybe over time, I'm going to be testing it against 2.5, maybe 2.6 is going to show. So maybe I'll update this current value here. By default, things are now assumed to be HTTPS, but I'll just add HTTPS here just to be quite explicit. And let me go here, HTTPS as well, just to be very explicit about what I'm going to be using. And now I can see, did I write the wrong thing? And I could just hover over it, and I can see yes, and I'm looking at the right variable. Hit Command Enter to be able to see that I'm having it. The next thing I want to do is maybe play around with some of these other variables. So for example, I can ask the data to be get in metrics, and then look verify that I get the data that's in metric. So here the temperature is 12 for London. Yes, that seems to be that's probably in degrees Celsius. So it seems that my API key worked. And the other kind of two things more I want to do with these variables is that maybe I want to order them in terms of importance. If I'm talking about security, maybe I want to put the API key at the top. But if the getting the data out is the most important thing, I'm going to put the API key, slide it down, and have London and the city name and the metrics as more important variables. And description is very helpful for two reasons. Country optional, because I can give myself examples. If, for example, I blank out another city name, I can easily swap in other cities so that I can do it. Similarly for the units, maybe if I want to remember, is it going to be metric or metrics? And again, I could just hard code those values here and make cells that I can remember this unit of measures. Using those measures, egg. So this will be metric, imperial, or standard. And so if I don't remember exactly what I'm supposed to use, it's gonna be units. I can just type it in, copy and paste it from my description so that I can quickly look at the different types of units and make sure that all of them, are easily accessible from that. So these would be the description that I can add. And here, this gives me a very nice visualization of that, of what's required, just to be able to do simply a request here. The next step here, what I want to do is I can either visualize the data just as a big JSON blob, and it could be okay. This big JSON blob is a lot better, than just actually seeing what the APIs is returning directly. So this API, in this case, the API is just directly returning the raw values, as opposed to, kind of formatting it in a nice way and coloring it. It does have the ability to collapse, so maybe I can hide some of the aspects of it so I can focus on information. So for example, I don't want to know the coordinates, but I just want to see what is the current temperature. I can hide out some of the objects and focus on that. But it's very common also that maybe I want to do a little bit extra and visualize the data, do maybe, see data as a bar graph or something like that. And here you can go quite crazy because you have access to a full HTML and CSS and JavaScript templates. So there's, it is possible to go a little bit nuts, but I don't want to go very nuts. I'll just show you a very simple example of that. So I'll create a visualization. So when I create a visualization, I want to add some code to be able to display the data. I want to visualizing the data, which means it's once I retrieve the data, do something for it to visualize it. So it's going to be a test as opposed to a pre-request script. So this is test, which means the request has completed, then I want to do something with the request. And what I'm going to do with the request is first thing is I need to pass it the visualizer two things. Is one, how I'm visualizing it, and the data that I want to use to visualize it. So how I'm going to visualize the data, something very, very simple. I just want to show the current temperature. How do I have access to the current temperature? I'm going to go to the response. Go to the JSON object. It's going to be response, and I'm going to go to the dot. So dot main dot. So it feels like. So I'm going to be displaying inside of this HTML string what is the current or what the temperature, and let's just leave it at that. And now I'm going to actually be able to call this visualizer, and I'm going to call the visualizer and set it with these two parameters. What do I need to do is the template, and then I need to pass in some data to it. So my template is this template object, the data object. Instead of initializing it, I'm just going to put it directly in the variable, and I'm going to call the response object. I'm going to give it to what I'm retrieving from Openweather. So if I just do this, I can look at visualize, and I can see that I'm getting the data. Let's just change that to something. It's going to visualize a little bit better. Say get the data in metric. That looks already a lot better. Maybe I want to add in things like units. So let's just add in the emoji for degrees Celsius. So I've added it in here. Maybe I also want to show the city. Let's see the city information. Oh, yeah, there's an object here, just.name. So I'll just go bracket, response.name, bracket, close. And let's see how I can do the city name. Oh, and I did a typo. The variable name is response. So yeah, so I have London 11:51. And then I could do a little bit more if I wanted to by just displaying different types of data. Maybe I want to show the description, or I want to grab the icon that shows this data. There's lots of ways of doing it. It's not very complicated to do it. To just grab and then show more information here. And then, you're off to the races. If you want to, stop there, I think that's plenty. If you want to go crazy, then you can show, maybe play with more of the APIs, add more complexity. Of course, more complexity might make it for a kind of, it then builds up to something like the complete solution, but it can also show up to something like, maybe has the right type of complexity. So if I'm talking to somebody, maybe international, maybe I'll just add in a language code to say that I'm talking I don't want the results in English, but I want something in Japanese. And then I can say, oh yeah, I'm talking about London with Tokyo and with the temperature, but maybe I'll want to talk about, the city of Tokyo and get the characters in Tokyo. Or, maybe I want to show well, anyways, so this shows kind of all the features that I want to be able to show. Once I'm done here and I get this kind of successfully passed it around, Postman does have the ability to then share this. So here what I can do is just share the collection. I can either share this just as a link so that anybody can be able to show this link. Has access to this link will be able to do something with this. Typically, if you have Postman installed, you'll be able to download them. You can always then, this will be a very short link which will show all the information that's part of your collection. It's not very easy to read here, but the important thing is that things like the API key that we were looking at is not part of this information. So let me just rephrase that. We needed an API key to be able to do this. If I look at what I'm going to be sharing, the API key is not part of that. But the information that I wanted to say, you need to go to HTTPS. So this resource here is passed along so that I'm sharing enough information to be able to run them, but I'm not oversharing things like the resource key. Anyways, so that's what I wanted to share about Postman and how I use Postman to demo APIs.